Fox News alert, the showdown over Obamacare's future. President Obama, with just 16 days left in office on Capitol Hill, huddling with Democrats to discuss how to save his signature legislative achievement from the wrecking ball. All this as Vice President-elect Mike Pence, also on the Hill, meeting with Republican leaders on their plan to dismantle Obamacare once and for all. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith, here today. Harris Faulkner, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, Fox News political and legal analyst Ebony Williams, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy. You know him from the O'Reilly Factor, and as host of Waters World, Jesse Waters is here, and he is now in Outnumbered's world. Welcome back, sir.
Here we go.
You ready?
There it is. Always ready.
All right.
Yeah,
you should stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's right. That's my philosophy, Harris.
I love it.
He sleeps in a suit, I hear.
See, how good does it look, too?
All right. Oh, my gosh. No comment. Let's move on. All right. You look great, Jesse. Here we go. We begin with the dueling meetings over Obamacare's future. President Obama making a rare appearance on the Hill in a last-ditch bid to save his signature health care law. The leader of the House Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, mocking Republican efforts to get rid of Obamacare.
Republicans say repeal and replace. The only thing that has going for it is alliteration. They have no replacement plan. They have no replacement plan because they can't agree. They don't have the votes for a replacement plan. So to repeal and then delay is an act of cowardice. That means we don't really know what we're doing.
At about the same time, Vice President-elect Pence strategizing with fellow Republicans. Our sources from inside their meeting saying Mr. Pence said he hopes to have a repeal bill on President Trump's desk to sign by February 20th. The Vice President-elect says they have to promise to keep.
What's clear here is the American people have spoken. They want to see us repeal and replace Obamacare. And today, my message to members of Congress is that we are going to be in the promise, keeping business. And the first order of business is to keep our promise to repeal Obamacare and replace it with the kind of health care reform that will lower the cost of health insurance without growing the size of government.
Meantime, President-elect Donald Trump weighing in with a warning to the GOP in a series of tweets saying, quote, Republicans must be careful in that the Dems own the failed Obamacare disaster with its poor coverage and massive premium increases, like the 116% hike in Arizona. Also, deductibles are so high that it is practically useless. Don't let the Schumer clowns out of this web. Massive increases of Obamacare will take place this year, and Dems are to blame for the mess. It will fall of its own weight. Be careful. All right, so let's go back to Nancy Pelosi's comments. The only thing the Republicans have going is alliteration.
Right.
Talking about repeal and replace. So where's this going, Jesse?
It's funny that she says Republicans have no plan. She was the one that said you have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, first of all. I also like the phrase Schumer clowns. I think that might be the new lying Ted or crooked Hillary, so I'm looking forward to hearing more of that. Obamacare has always been a joke. I think President-elect Donald Trump is now saying, let's make sure the joke's not now on us. Because untangling this thing, I don't trust any Washington politician to do it effectively. It has to be a smooth landing for employees, and it has to be immediate for employers. The thing's a mess. Everybody knows it. The Democrats created it. I think Trump's warning everybody, you don't want to have the Republican Party out there with a hacksaw ready to amputate this thing, and because you know the media is going to come out and interview every single person that is affected by this repeal. Not like they did that at all when people lost their health care under President Obama, but you know, when the shoe's on the other foot, what the media's going to do.
I mean, but Ebony, the warnings coming from the Democrats they're dire. I mean, Chuck Schumer, America is going to be sick again with the Republican plan. To their point, 20 million people are affected. There's a lot at stake here.
You know what I'm sick of, Sandra? It is the fact that in this conversation, there are really two things that we're talking about. One is kind of this messaging thing. It's very adversarial, very right versus left, Dem versus Republican, and they're going to do what they do. But to Jesse's point, and really what you just said, 20 million people that are going to be affected by what happens in Washington. conversation. And that's actually the policy conversation. And that's what's really, really important. And so, Jesse's right. This is it's dense, it's complicated. I'm one of those people that's in the thick of this increased premium that makes it nearly impossible. I'll be honest, I'm one of those people that every year is thinking, do I want to pay this ridiculously expensive premium, or do I want to pay the penalty? Because that's just how bad it is. But it's got to be fixed, and it's got to be done in the right way. And so I think when John McCain says, you know, be careful, be slow, it's not, you know, that he's afraid of doing something that's important and radical, doing an improvement to Obamacare, but it must be done right, and it's not going to be a quick fix. It has to be done in a very cautious and methodical way that includes important people to the table, not just political hacksaws.
And as Donald Trump is saying, he wants the Democrats to own this as their failure.
Well, and President Obama wants, as he just came out of that meeting moments ago, wants his side to make the Republicans own their part in this. In fact, he said, don't save them, don't help them. You know, just get the messaging out there that this sticks to them. I thought this was interesting. So Representative Mark Amodei, Republican in Nevada, said this as he was walking out of the meeting. I walked out with a very real worry that Republicans might make the same mistake as Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, and doing it just behind closed doors. And to flip that, Senator Schumer said, Republicans don't know what to do. They're like the dog who caught the bus. So the rhetoric in all of this is really heating up. The American people, though, Kennedy, are waiting for a plan. Anybody got a plan?
Yeah, no, but that's exactly what's going to happen, is the American people are the ones who are going to lose. And the insults may be florid and pretty, and I love the idea of Schumer clowns, but in the end, what we're looking at is being homeless, because Obamacare is like a house, and you have a choice as a homeowner. Do we tear this house down? It's got termites, it's got wood damage, it's structurally unsound, or do we try and salvage what we have, because then we have to bring in a structural engineer, and we have to reinforce the whole thing, which is going to be twice as expensive, and it's going to take twice as long. But if you just mow the whole thing down and you have a good architect, then that way, you know, if you've got a sound foundation, you can build something that's much better.
But in the
People coming out of both of these meetings.
I would argue that someone like Tom Price is going to become Health and Human Services Secretary, an orthopedic surgeon who's been a vocal critic of Obamacare, and also, I think, one of the best analysts of how to fix the law. You get people like him, you know, he's
well, they're running out of time.
But to that
because
point,
Trump is promising on day one to use executive orders to try to take some of this apart.
The in the meantime question has to be answered. For these 20 million that didn't have it before, didn't have any kind of coverage before, they have some kind of coverage now, whether it's Medicaid or whatever, the in the meantime question that Kennedy is bringing up has to be at least addressed and answered.
Well, any architect is better than the Democrats' architect, Jonathan Gruber, who said they passed this thing because of the stupidity of the American people. And just go back to what you were just saying, Harris. You have a meeting of Democrats there with President Obama, who's a lame duck. I would love to be in that meeting, because these Democrats lost everything because of Obamacare.
Let me tell you what.
They lost the House, they lost the Senate, they got smacked down, and now he's begging them to sit back and do nothing.
You're so right. You're so right. So Representative Louise Slaughter of New York says when she walked out of the meeting, she realized that they don't even have anything to replace the law should it be wiped away. Democrats weren't even given any plan either, and it's their law.
Right.
Okay,
well, they want
But let's go back to some of the warnings, as you said, John McCain, that are coming from Republicans. I mean, Newt Gingrich is saying Republicans have to be careful that they don't get blamed for taking away people's health coverage. John McCain saying he's always worried about something that takes a long time in the making, and we've got to concentrate our efforts to make sure that we do it right and that nobody's left out.
Yeah, but an incredibly high percentage of the people who are on Obamacare, as it's known, are on Medicaid.
Okay.
And that also means that bureaucratic, bloated entity it's too big, and it's also collapsing under its own weight.
Too big to fail.
So yeah, but you've got two things here. So if Medicaid were so great, and if that were the answer to everything, then that could be the stopgap until you have replacement legislation and systems in place.
That's
but
an
the law
interesting idea.
Well, that's one of the things that Republicans said: block grant Medicaid to the states, and let the states figure out how best to issue that money to the people who are living there, and also have, you know, health insurance accounts that you can sell across state lines.
Exactly.
Well, one thing is happening for sure that's positive. They're looking at it.
All right, it's a showdown for sure. And before his comments today, Senator Chuck Schumer giving his first speech as minority leader yesterday, and he didn't hold back. Check this out.
If you abandon change and simply embrace the shop-worn, hard right pro-corporate, pro-elite policies, diametrically opposed to the many campaign themes that helped you win working-class votes and get you elected, your presidency will not succeed. We will hold your feet to the fire every time you abandon your pledge and work instead as an ally of the hard right. These issues are too important for mere words. Our challenges too entrenched for mere tweeting. Making America great again requires more than 140 characters per issue. With all due respect, America cannot afford a Twitter presidency. And many Americans are afraid, Mr. President-elect, that instead of rolling up your sleeves and forging serious policies, for you, Twitter suffices.
Ebony, I heard you sigh as we listened to his words.
Well, it was just such an indictment on Twitter, right? And here's the issue. Whether you like it or not, Donald Trump has actually done some pretty effective haggling, politically speaking. I don't mean that pejoratively, through Twitter. He's actually been quite effective in getting his point across. And the good thing about it, that I like actually about Twitter, it's completely transparent. It's instant, and you don't have a middleman to mince words and kind of reframe and repackage for better or for worse. So I really don't know why in this kind of grand introduction of what Schumer is going to be like as this minority leader, he spends all his time chastising the president-elect on the issue of Twitter.
And I recall President Obama even saying after Donald Trump was elected, we need to give him a chance. That doesn't sound like a leader of the Democratic Party who's telling everyone, hey, let's give him a chance.
No, I mean, the Democrats don't want to be the party of no while President Trump is making America great again. That's not a good look. Let's remember what happened during the election. Trump fractured the Democratic Party. If they continue to go left, they're going to continue that fracture. They need to get on board, and I think Schumer's just trying to overplay his hand and send out the right signals to the donors and to the base. But I think when they get behind closed doors with Donald Trump, he's a better negotiator. Harry Reid was a terrible negotiator. I think this guy can do deals. Who cares when he comes out into the sunlight and bashes Trump? That's just politics.
And by the way, Chuck Schumer was recently very critical of something President Obama did. Israel, for example.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, but this is such a game of politics, as you say. Again, the bottom line is, does anybody have a plan to move the country forward, where no matter what we're talking about, particularly the Affordable
All right,
Care Act?
well, what's the alternative to 140 characters? Charles Schumer is standing up before the Senate and spewing thousands of words, looking down condescendingly over his reading glasses, blathering on and on and on, not saying a thing. And all they have is this opposition messaging. And that's it. And I know we're going to talk about that later in the show, but that's what people are sick of. This is the exact dynamic that made people so nauseous. They took a much more extreme choice than they traditionally would have. And Charles Schumer is part of the reason that they're absolutely doing that. And he should be. Jesse's absolutely right. He should be finding common ground. He was not only opposed to the UN vote, he was also opposed to the Iran deal. And then, this Obama administration came out and chastised Schumer.
He may be right, but you're still outnumbered, and we'll remind you that as we go to break. Waters. All right, well, the date is set. The president-elect announcing his first formal news conference since being elected. Did he wait too long, and will members of the media come out swinging? Jesse loves that video. And the president-elect also taking a swipe at intelligence officials over that briefing on Russian hacking, or what he calls so-called hacking. And after the show, you can join our live chat by clicking on the Overtime tab at foxnews.com/outnumbered, or go to facebook.com/outnumberedfnc. And of course, you can always tweet us. We look at them during the show. We'll see you there.
Little hump day sizzle, our first Wednesday of the new year. The president-elect announced the date of his long-awaited first news conference since his November election victory. How did he do it? He hit social media, tweeting yesterday, "I will be having a general news conference on January 11th in NYC. Thank you." The transition team then said that could shift to the next day, January 12th. We'll keep you posted. You will recall President-elect Trump had scheduled one back in December to talk about plans to leave his businesses before taking office, but that event was then postponed. President-elects normally hold a formal news conference just a few days after their election. And now the question's over the tone we might see between Mr. Trump and the media come January 11th or 12th or whatever it turns out being. So I'm a little confused by this because some critics are saying, oh, you're just going too fast or too slow with all those cabinet picks and everything else. And with the news conference, it's too soon. You can't make everybody happy.
No, you can't win. And I think President Obama gave the least amount of press conferences during his first term than both Bushes and Clinton. So didn't Hillary go almost a year or two without giving a press conference?
More than 270 days.
Yeah, and I remember the questions that President Obama used to get at his press conferences. Oh, how enchanted are you by the White House? Or
what did you do for family weekend?
Yes. Isn't it upsetting to you that people think you're a bad guy? So, he's probably going to get thrown daggers at him next week, President-elect Donald Trump. It's going to be vicious. Hopefully Jorge Ramos shows up and acts out and he gets booted like last time. It's going to be very entertaining. And I think the media is going to go wild because I consider it a badge of honor when they get attacked by President-elect Donald Trump. So it's going to be very feisty.
So in our previous segment, we were talking about all the tweets and how, we're hearing from the President-elect all the time. We are hearing from the President-elect all the time.
Doesn't he essentially
the media says too much.
Right. Doesn't he essentially address every concern from the media with those tweets? I mean, whether it was Israel or Russia, I mean, he gets on the horn pretty fast, arguably too fast. And Kellyanne Conway, Sean Spicer, they have alluded that there's going to be differences to how this White House communicates, whether it's social media, Facebook, in lieu of some of the daily press briefings. But I don't know that there's any concern that we're not hearing from the President-elect enough.
I'm not at all mad at this delay, this kind of unprecedented, I guess, delay in hearing from Trump at a press conference format, because that's just a lot of pageantry to me.
Yeah.
I can do without that. I'm not really impressed by that. He's got a direct connect to the American people. Yeah. You're exactly right. So since he's already kind of figured out a way around that traditional way of communicating with the people, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
The only
I'm not good with that. I don't have a problem with Twitter. I think Twitter is fantastic. My monologue on my Fox Business show tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern is all about why Twitter is so fantastic, mostly because it gets people like Charles Schumer, House Republicans, and China in such a bundle that they should just all go fight each other and stop spending money. I don't have a problem with Twitter at all. The problem that I do have with only Twitter is it can be one-sided. I mean, that can be just a tool for propaganda. I think it's important for the president to be challenged. Do I trust every member of the media to ask objective questions? No, not at all. But hopefully there are still people out there who are educated and curious, who have the public's interest at heart, and they will challenge the president.
She looked at me lovingly when she said that, so I'm hoping that I'm in the second category. Thoughtful questions.
Indeed.
But I will say this, there are some questions to be asked, and you're talking to your followers, so most of your tweets are one-sided. I mean, that's the whole point of talking to your followers.
But when President Obama gives a press conference, he can call on 6 people and speak for 1 hour and make no news.
Usually doesn't get to sit.
Donald Trump will call on 16 people and make tons more news.
So are you saying he should do like an open Twitter news conference forum, perhaps?
I don't really care what he does.
Or maybe you should do a Reddit AMA.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't even know what that means.
Or a TED.
That means ask me anything.
Okay, well, I don't know if you can do that on camera.
Maybe he'll answer.
It's not the American medical... Never mind.
Well, that too.
All right, we'll move on. The president-elect tweeted that the intelligence briefing on Russia's hacking was delayed until Friday. But officials reportedly said the briefing was always scheduled for that date. What exactly is going on with that? And with the new session of Congress underway, Mr. Trump already seems to be influencing Republican leaders. The tweet, the response, and what it all means about their relationship. Are they getting along? Lovey-lovey.
Welcome back to the couch. This is Outnumbered. President-elect Donald Trump taking a swipe at intelligence officials, blaming them for delaying a briefing on the Russian hacking of the U.S. election. Tweeting, the intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. This after Mr. Trump had said he would make an announcement about what he knows about the hacking either yesterday or today. Now, meantime, CIA Director John Brennan is urging patience.
I would suggest to individuals who have not yet seen the report, who have not yet been briefed on it, that they wait and see what it is that the intelligence community is putting forward before they make those judgments.
Someone's out of a job, yeah. Intelligence officials reportedly say the briefing was always scheduled for Friday. So, Jesse, what do you take from all of this? Because it definitely seems politically motivated, but has our intelligence apparatus been so compromised by politics that they're no longer capable of doing their job? What do you think?
I don't think Trump trusts Obama's intelligence team. And remember, John Brennan, the CIA guy, won't even say Islamic terrorism. And they've used and abused agencies under this president to target people they don't like. The IRS, they spied on James Rosen.
And James Risen.
And James Risen. So, you know, there's a lot of abuse in the system, and Trump's saying, you know, if Hillary can rig the primary against Bernie, is Obama rigging the transition against me? Let's get a fresh set of eyes, my guys, in there, and then we'll make a different assessment.
But if you're saying it's okay to be skeptical of the intelligence that's coming out of Obama's intelligence teams, do you think it's okay to make it public? I mean, how does that make us
I think Trump makes everything public, and Obama sure made what he's been doing public, so I think it's tit for tat.
Language. But Sandra, I have to ask you about that very thing. What are we entitled to know? I mean, are we strong enough as a country to learn exactly what Russia was doing? Is there enough of a case there, or are they hiding something?
But the moment that the president-elect, he's already been elected, the moment that he says he knows something that they don't and that we don't, don't you think that should be disclosed? Okay, first of all.
Maybe he'll disclose it at this press conference next week.
Okay, that's fine, but... Okay, I'm just going to leave you with that thought. Secondly, I think it's totally okay for him to be skeptical in the way that he's meeting with all these intelligence heads and saying, do you agree with each other's assessments? Because that is what he is doing.
Well, we do know what happened. What happened was Podesta gave his password to a hacker. And guess what his password was? Password. It's a true story.
Well,
his password was password.
Let's not forget, Harris, that the FBI and CIA had very different versions of some of these intelligence issues.
Well, and I don't think that that's necessarily something that breaks news. I mean, I would imagine that intel agencies and how they gather things with different parameters, sometimes they may come up with slightly different stories.
But if your conclusion is they hacked the election, therefore they changed the outcome of the election,
well,
then you better be
got to get together on that. That's politics, because I haven't seen anybody say that A plus A, you know, equals some. Well, they wouldn't. They'd say 2 plus 2. But nobody's saying that that would be 5. But that's the politics getting in. So Senator Lindsey Graham said this morning, he was talking pretty tough, actually, and he was saying that he hopes that on Friday that the president-elect comes to the same conclusion that he and others have, and that is that Russia actually did hack us. He didn't give the parameters of why they would have, other than they hate us. Like it didn't have anything to do with one person winning the election over the other. But his hope is that we'll then look at that and try to keep it from happening again. When you make your password,
Wait,
it gets hard to protect you.
Why is it a hack if you give someone your password? That's not a hack. That means you got duped. Podesta's not very intelligent.
It goes with the acronym CYA.
That's right.
That's a different kind of intelligence failure.
I'll say this. I'm with Sandra and Jesse on I don't think the President-elect Trump has to blindly trust intelligence agencies, period. But I do think I have a personal problem, though, when you undermine and you have such suspicion before you've seen the report that I really don't feel like I'm going to hear anything from President Trump even after he sees the report that's going to be any different, right? Like, so I guess my question is, is the President-elect Trump even going into this with a real open mind? Is there anything that he can be presented with that's going to change this for him? And that's what I already have questions about because of the public.
And you also have to be careful here because, you know, you can't assume that because perhaps there were other countries, perhaps there were other groups of hackers that were hacking us, and maybe it wasn't only Russia.
Hey, Kennedy, can I jump in with this because this is just out. This is the Intel Committee ranking member, Adam Schiff. He just put out a statement saying President-elect Trump should avail himself of world's finest intelligence resources. The very last line of this is the most important one. He says where he belittles the reputation of the brave and hardworking professionals in the intelligence community. He impairs our national security and the prospects for the success of his administration.
That's kind of my point.
He's a famous never-Trumper, let's remember that.
He's a Democrat from California. I'm sorry, but here he's being hysterical and political, and he's just trying to recategorize something. And
so Senator Graham said today something very similar to that. He said that he's choosing to believe in the people who took the oath to abide by the Constitution, those patriots who gathered that intelligence.
That's fine, but what other intelligence is there? What other countries? What do we know about North Korea and China?
And are there other Republicans who are like him, and what will that blowback be?
They're both politically motivated, but Lindsey Graham has always hated Russia. This is just, again, this is the type of confirmation bias where he's just looking for another reason to reaffirm what he already believes.
It might be politically motivated, Kennedy, but I have to say this. There were so many political casualties in this election. I think the State Department, I think these intelligence agencies, and the FBI. Exactly, Harris. And I think if we're ever to turn a page going into 2017, that is my hope for the new year, that our very important government agencies that lost tremendous credibility in this election can be on track to regain it.
You know what I love about you? You're obviously a woman of prayer.
I am.
That faith is what it's going to take. Yeah. And I love it when we're all talking over each other and Jesse just sits there and just...
Yes, I'm the quiet and reasonable one.
I'm going to wait. President-elect Donald Trump is turning to Twitter to crack the whip on Congress and Republicans in Congress, specifically House Republicans, over planned changes to the Office of Congressional Ethics. Now, this was breaking news as we came to you yesterday, so we're going to move the chapter along. Here's what he tweeted that broke this wide open. With all that Congress has to work on, do they really have to make the weakening of the independent ethics watchdog, as unfair as it may be, their #1 act and priority? Focus on tax reform, health care, and so many other things of far greater importance. Those tweets went out around 10 a.m. yesterday, and then at noon Eastern, right here on Outnumbered, you saw it. The lawmakers scuttled, and they said, no, we're pulling the plan, prompting questions to lawmakers whether Mr. Trump's pressure was the reason why. Watch.
What role did Donald Trump's tweet play in your decision this morning?
I don't know that I don't know that it played any role in my decision, but maybe in some others.
The president-elect is criticizing this move. Did that play any role in the decision today?
Yes, it animated the press.
No. Wow. They just threw us under the bus. How Minority Leader Pelosi was quick to pounce with a statement, reading in part, once again, the American people have seen the toxic dysfunction of a Republican House that will do anything to further their special interest agenda, thwart transparency, and undermine the public trust, end quote. Speak, Mr. Waters.
Don't mind if I do. So Trump comes out and promises to drain the swamp, and the first thing on day one, Republicans get caught sticking their fingers to plug that swamp drain up. It's totally pathetic and just shows you how shady the instincts are of House Republicans, and they got caught out on it, and, you know, good for them. He embarrassed them. It shows Trump's bold leadership that he's kind of above party, and I like it when presidents of either party buck their own party because it makes things unpredictable, and that's what's fun about Washington when people go against each other, because the rest of the time it is so boring.
All right, so then I was reminded yesterday that that's not exactly what he said, and I had to go back and look at it. He was taking issue with the timing of all of this, and that it shouldn't be their first priority.
He's right.
Well, you don't know. You don't know. I mean,
Right,
but he did directly address the timing in the wording of it. He says, let's get to tax reform, health care, more important things to do, basically, is what he is saying.
Priority.
But once again, guess how he pushed Republicans on this? With Twitter.
Yep,
That's
didn't
right.
get a press
Seemed to be
conference.
effective.
Didn't need a press conference.
No, and Nancy Pelosi can't have it both ways. She can't be upset at Republicans for wanting to, you know, tinker with this oversight, this ethical oversight.
You know you want to do an impersonation right now.
Nancy is like, you guys, you have to have ethics. That's what we have in San Francisco. We have ethics.
Just let it out.
And the
Let it out.
Giants in Madison Bumgarner.
Just let it
But she can't be mad at Donald Trump for, you know, smacking Paul Ryan with his own gavel.
Yeah. Well, this is this exact type of effectiveness I'm talking about from Trump's end, where you don't need a press conference, you don't need all this hoopla. You just lay it right down the center, you know, and really called it out. You're right, Jesse, totally kind of embarrassed his own here in a good way. And whether it's because he doesn't want this at all or he's got issue with the timing or the priority of it.
We won't know.
Regardless,
we'll have to wait and
the
see.
point was taken and the adjustment was made, and that's the part I appreciate.
Yeah, I love the fact that the one lawmaker there said, yeah, but it's the media's fault. You know? Just eliminated us. Anyway, we'll move on. The list of companies keeping jobs in America keeps growing. Whether President-elect Donald Trump is turning out to be a job creator-in-chief before even taking office, or is he patting himself on the back much too soon? We'll talk about it.
All right, well, President-elect Donald Trump may be proving to be quite the job creator, and he hasn't even taken office yet. First, he took aim at GM, tweeting, General Motors is sending Mexican-made model of Chevy Cruze to U.S. car dealers tax-free across border. Make in USA or pay big border tax. GM pushed back, saying they build those cars for global markets and there's no demand for them there. But then Ford announced it will cancel a $1.6 billion plant planned for Mexico and will instead invest in a Michigan assembly plant, creating 700 jobs. Mr. Trump tweeting, thank you to Ford for scrapping a new plant in Mexico and creating 700 new jobs in the U.S. This is just the beginning. Much more to follow. Ford CEO Mark Fields calling the decision a vote of confidence in the president-elect's policies.
We're also encouraged by the pro-growth policies that President-elect Trump and the new Congress have indicated that they will pursue. And we believe that these tax and regulatory reforms are critically important to boost U.S. competitiveness.
The announcement from Ford follows Mr. Trump taking credit for keeping thousands of jobs, you'll remember, at Sprint and Carrier, by the way, and keeping those Carrier jobs from moving down to Mexico. Critics saying the president-elect is exaggerating his numbers and job-keeping skills, claiming plans to retain these jobs had been in the works for some time. It's unbelievable when this news comes out how everyone picks it apart as, well, wait, they were going to do this to begin with, or is this really a result of Donald Trump being elected president? What is it?
Yeah, no one wants to give Trump any credit. I think I heard Josh Earnest, the White House spokesman, the other day saying, oh, well, President Obama has created 900,000 manufacturing jobs. Actually, that's not true. He's actually lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs since he's been president. So if you want to play that saved or created game, I think Trump might already be ahead. Listen, he has the bully pulpit, and he's a keen negotiator, and he has that pro-growth policy agenda behind him. When you combine all those things, that's really keeping these jobs here. President Obama, he might have tried that, but he didn't have the pro-growth policies in place to convince these CEOs to keep jobs in America. So I think it's a great thing.
But in the case of Ford, the CEO was on with Neil Cavuto yesterday. He said, well, actually, this is a demand story, and we just weren't seeing the demand for these small cars. So then everybody said, whoa, whoa, so this isn't because of Trump.
Yeah.
What is it?
But that may be. I think he's really smart to put that out there and craft this deal in a way that Donald Trump immediately tweets about it, because that's the first thing I thought before the president-elect actually put it out there on social media is he's going to give Ford a big bump right now. And believe it or not, that can have an effect on the stock price, but also perceptually when people go buy a car and they go, oh, I just heard that Ford's going to keep their plant going in Michigan. Fantastic. Let's go buy a Focus.
Ford and Trump,
that's really good. But also, if you listen to what he said, he talked a lot about the regulations and the business environment in this country, being optimistic, reaching out, saying, if you are friendlier to big companies, we will stay here. And that's the ultimate message that Ford is putting across to this president-elect.
Ford Focus with your family, could you fit the snowboards and the ski?
You got to get a rack on top or a Thule box, and then...
Let me tell you, Kennedy is gifted at packing. Because I've seen you, you are gifted.
It is.
So you've got General Motors out there. You've got other car dealers out there, car makers out there who'll be watching this. They're having their own issues. I wonder if this sort of thing will be contagious. I did read that Ford saved a big pot of cash by building a plant in Michigan versus Mexico. Yeah, like it was going to be over $1.6 billion in one, and then about 750 million in the other. Were the numbers that I saw. Now,
well, it's not only good policy, it's also good politics, because a lot of these manufacturing plants are in these Rust Belt states that Trump won. So if he can keep creating these manufacturing jobs in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio, first term becomes second term, Democrats are terrified.
And by the way, 700 people, that's families. Extrapolate that out.
Right.
I mean, those are a lot of lives. It's a good start. Right?
And that's what's the bottom line here. Whether Trump should be credited with it, whether it was going to happen anyway, for me, that's really moot. What's important to me is that the jobs are staying and America wins. And I don't want to credit this quote because it's always miscredited. It really, amazing things happen when you don't care who gets credit for them. And I understand the political ramifications, and those are not lost on me, Jesse. But again, for me, that Trump tweets it out is good because it can be contagious, and it can really kind of shift and motivate us all to kind of think in this pro-American, pro-growth spirit, and that's a good thing.
You can't deny what the stock market has done and the confidence that we have seen in his proposals to roll back regulations and cut taxes. All right, President-elect Trump may be democratically elected, but Hollywood celebs just can't seem to get over it. In a new video message to Congress featuring 20 stars, including Rosie Perez, they continue to bash the president-elect. Is it time to move on? We will debate.
Numbered in just a moment. For now, let's go to John Scott with what's coming up in the second hour of Happening Now. Hey, John.
Yeah, because we're going to be making Happening Now, Harris, in our next hour. Vice President-elect Mike Pence going after Obamacare as Republicans on Capitol Hill prepare to dismantle President Obama's signature legislative achievement. The president holding meetings with Democrats as they try to save his Affordable Care Act. We've got the fireworks and some new details. Also, another Northeast train crash to tell you about. More than 100 people injured. A live report on that ahead on Happening Now. Harris.
We'll see you then. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And Hollywood just can't quit talking Trump. 20 celebrities, including Sally Field, Rosie Perez, and Steve Buscemi, releasing a video message to Congress demanding that they take a stand against the president-elect. Watch.
Here's what we demand. To the extent that Trump pursues racist, sexist, anti-immigrant, anti-worker, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, anti-environmental policies, we demand that you vigorously oppose him.
We won't remain silent.
We'll work harder to mobilize our votes
and our communities. But we need you.
And we expect you to have our backs.
To protect our civil liberties and to use your congressional powers
to obstruct.
To obstruct.
Obstruct, defeat, anything. Anything that violates our core values as diverse Americans.
But they aren't the only ones who just can't seem to move on. Celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain crediting smug liberals like himself, he says, for Trump's rise in a recent interview. Parts of his comment reading, quote, "The utter contempt with which privileged Eastern liberals such as myself discuss red state, gun country, working class America as ridiculous and morons and rubes is largely responsible for the upswell of rage and contempt and desire to pull down the temple that we're seeing now." So how about that, Jesse?
Jesse's taking notes.
Yes.
Yes, vigorously taking notes. Listen, I can't say anything bad about Rosie Perez because I used to have a huge crush on her with white makeup.
Yeah.
All the other actors and actresses are really, really out of it. It's funny because, they're talking about Trump as this bad guy. I don't think Hollywood's this paragon of virtue. Weren't they just criticized for shutting out black nominees? I think all of them have illegal Mexican day laborers watering their lawns every day. Half the time they're getting caught like smacking their wives around or in some drug or sex scandal. So they're no.
And they're not outraged about any of that.
Yeah,
right?
they're not outraged. But Trump says one mean thing and he's like the worst person in the world. I don't think these endorsements really matter anymore. I think John Bon Jovi and Katy Perry, those days are over. Was it Jay-Z and Beyonce,
LeBron
They put some skin in the game last time in Philly on the eve of the election, and they got smoked. So I think they're laying low. All these other celebrities, they're a little older, so their brand isn't really hanging in the balance as much anymore. So they're just living
everybody. I will
say this, not only do they not matter, they have the opposite effect.
I agree.
And not only do they turn off a majority of voters who are like, yeah, I get it. You don't speak for me. You live in a bubble. And by the way, Hollywood has not done a great job of employing women. They're actually worse at employing women, especially in top executive posts, than Hillary Clinton was at pay parity in her Senate office.
So, Harris, how about Anthony Bourdain making that point, right? Saying that, you know what, it's actually this liberal, elite, East Coast echo chamber that's a part
So
of
he's
the
being
problem.
honest. He's being transparent. I mean, that's got to be refreshing, I would
He doesn't
imagine.
call it a mischaracterization, though.
No,
Well,
he's saying
admits
that
to it.
that's what it is.
He's just admitted to it. And I sort of saw it as an admission, not only for himself, but just, you know, this is why half the country needed to be heard. Like, it's the thing that the Democrats are actually not doing right now. They're not looking introspectively.
Yes.
I would say that if I were one of those actors, and I don't want to hit him on the age belt, but since you opened the door, I'm going to walk through it. If that is the last thing that people saw you do was this PSA, how does that play for you when you go for a reading?
An audition. That's a good point. Let me ask you this, Sandra. We're going to play this now. Bruce Springsteen actually did a radio interview, and he had quite a bit to say. Let's take a look.
Shocking.
I felt disgust before,
right,
but never the kind of fear that you feel now.
Right.
And it's simply the fear of, is someone simply competent enough to do this particular job?
Right.
Forget about where they are ideologically.
Right.
Do they simply have the pure competence
Right.
to be put in a position of such, in responsibility?
Okay, now, Sandra, he talks, it's not about ideology, at least at that point. It's about competence. No, your reflection of that.
And his fear.
Yeah.
What? Give us an example. What is it that he fears so much? I have a hard time taking this seriously. I mean, look, Bruce Springsteen is an amazing musician. He's had an amazing career. But I listen to that, and I don't know. It's just, it turns you off a little bit.
Yeah, I think they fear Trump's success, because then they're on the opposite side of the ball. And talk about Trump being incompetent. Hillary was pretty incompetent during that last election. I mean, she had all the money in the world and everything going for her.
It's fear or
and her
something
campaign
else.
manager gave out his password.
Yeah, I think that there is fear, but I don't know if it's so much about Trump's success, maybe a little bit, but I think it's mostly about relevancy. I mean, they no longer have somebody in the White House who, and you know that the Obamas are throwing their farewell party at the White House. They don't have somebody who's going to be inviting them to come and play in the numbers that they have been previously.
And they won't accept those invites.
We'll see what happens. Trump was originally a celebrity himself. Well, more outnumbered in just a moment.
Snap. Would make Jesse Waters cry like a little girl.
That is a tease.
Boy.
For the ages.
Oh, my God. No, actually, you're going to talk about it in a couple of seconds.
Yes, tune into the, what do you call it?
OT, baby. Outnumbered overtime. OT, baby. Yes, and you'll be with us. We're glad you were here.
Thank you.
FoxNews.com/outnumbered. Tap on the overtime tab. We'll see you back here
Was it cry or
tomorrow
scream
at
like
noon Eastern. Were you screaming? No.
Both.
You'll find out now.